Here's the thing. Myles Garrett to the Lions is such a no-brainer, right? It's such a no-brainer. They need an edge rusher. Why not go get opposite of Aiden Hutchinson? Why not go get the best one available? That's true of a number of positions, right? You could say the same thing
cornerback
about a corner because of Carlton Davis's contract situation. So you always want to go get the best available. The edge rusher is a very, very sexy, exciting position. Why would Brad Holmes, and we played a whole bunch of sound for you, and that was the tenor of his time. Whenever the edge rusher topic came up, you heard what it sounded like. It was, we have other guys, we have to sign people. It was the message I think he was getting across over and over again is we can't afford him. Why wouldn't they go get the best player available at a position of need? Because it's so obvious. And a guy that's been very smart here in Detroit is sending the message because we can't afford him. And I whether it's true or not, I mean, I guess that's subject to debate. If you want to talk about if you're comfortable with losing a bunch of players that I think Brad Holmes' message is, we're not comfortable with losing those guys. They are core pieces to our foundation that we think we can win with. And you know that, okay, do we assume now that Brad Holmes is an idiot for not saying F them players, because it's no longer about F them picks. It's F them players that he wouldn't be able to re-sign. And if we had the books in front of us and he could point out, well, here's why we can't afford him, would everybody go, okay? Or do you just assume, as somebody did yesterday, he's arrogant and just trying to win with the players he drafted?
I think it's being very smart. I think this is all part of the negotiations on right now on a player that's unavailable because Cleveland has said he's unavailable. They have no plans on trading Myles Garrett. I think that they will trade Myles Garrett. I don't think it's going to end up being to the Lions because I don't think the Lions can put together a good enough package without really compromising the integrity of their team to do so. Other teams have better draft capital, so that's why I think it'll happen with somebody else. But when he says that, if you're inferring from that they can't afford him, again, I think it's they can't afford him on a long-term deal. I think they can afford him for the remainder of his current contract. That I think they can.
Then it's a no-brainer, right?
Well, it would be, again, but then you got to worry about the draft capital part. But when he says that they can't, it maybe what that does, it sends a signal out to the other teams in the league, not Cleveland, but the other teams in the league. Oh, Detroit's out. So we don't have to bid too crazy. And then maybe Detroit can come in at the last minute and throw a deal that makes sense. But I do think that there's a difference between the remainder of Myles Garrett contract and what you can afford versus signing him to an extension, which would be really prohibitive. And that's where you really have to take stock and go, okay, what do we have here? Does this mean that we can't give an extension to some of our other key players, and specifically in the secondary?
I guess if it were just about two things. One is I think if the Lions swooped in at the last minute and topped the best offer, those teams that made their offers would get an opportunity to top even that. It's not like they wouldn't get a chance to up their ante. Two is if they could afford him even now, I think it would still be a no-brainer and they would just go get him. Why aren't they just go getting him? Well, the truth is he may not be available.
He's not available right now.
Well, according to the GM, yes. According to the GM. But I feel like yesterday he stepped to the podium trying to let people know we can't afford Myles Garrett. People.
Yeah, I guess I'm not buying it.
Okay.
And we can agree to disagree on that. I think, and I definitely think that they would have room to do so. You can always redo your contracts for players that you just signed.
It checks out because I tend to think the cap is more difficult to navigate than you do, and that goes back to the beginning of the show. 248-539-9797. All right, people, how do you interpret what Brad Holmes had to say? And then the other thing is, if they address the pass rush and the defense, they don't get Myles Garrett. But they keep Zadarius Smith. They draft Kenneth Grant and sign a more affordable free agent, Khalil Mack. Is that Would that make people happy?
Yeah, I think it would.
Even they get the Myles Garrett at all cost people.
Well, but that would require, A, it's going to require patience, okay? And 2, it'll be easier to take because I don't think either one of us, do you think the Myles Garrett's going to get dealt before the draft?
I don't know. I
don't think he will. I think he gets dealt, but I don't think it's going to be before the draft. So free agency will already be well past the full throes of free agency. So the Lions may very well have a deal with Khalil Mack before the draft is done, okay, to get that ball rolling in that direction. Yeah, I would take that. Absolutely. Give me Khalil Mack, give me Kenneth Grant, and re-sign, or not re-sign him, but he's already on the contract, but you're willing to have Zadarius Smith there. Yeah, I think that's a really nice combination to have. It's short term, because you're not going to sign Khalil Mack to some long-term extension, and you'll have Zadarius Smith for one more year.
But that feels to me
like it's a pretty good defensive line going into this season.
You don't have to give up anything.
Yeah.
And you can do what Brad Holmes is making abundantly clear is the plan. I would think that they could still re-sign their own guys. Now, am I wrong on the market value of Khalil Mack? What is the market value of Khalil Mack? It wouldn't approach the $20 million that
I can't imagine it does.
Getting.
I mean, he's at the end of his career. He is still a guy that can get to the quarterback, and he has value. And I just don't see him being like this $15 to $20 million a year player. So that's why I think you need to be patient about it. Another thing thrown in the mix, Harold Landry from Tennessee has now been given permission to go ahead and seek a trade as well. This is a guy who's got 31.5 sacks over his last 3 seasons. It's declined a little bit. I think it went 12.5 to 10 and then to 9 sacks over the last 3 years, but it's still a lot of production in 3 years. And he's in the last year of his contract that pays him, I think it's over $17 million for this season. Would the Lions be involved in a trade to acquire Harold Landry, or do you just simply watch this one and see if Harold Landry is a candidate to be released?
He appears to be under contract for 2 more years at 17.5, which approaches Myles Garrett money. And I'm going to guess that's probably not affordable for them, but
it's less than Myles Garrett.
It's less than Myles Garrett, not much less, but it's less than Myles Garrett as far as cap hit's concerned.
And it's less than Myles Garrett in terms of what you'd have to give up to acquire him.
All right, this is the hot button issue when it comes to the Lions this season. There's that big, bright, shiny thing out there, and you have a GM that's downplaying this. Are you okay with their approach? Which their approach, if you believe him, is we can't afford this player. We have to bring back our own guys.